We are welcoming today a man who really doesn't need an introduction, I don't think, because you probably already know of Sam I Can Win if you're on social media and you're in the space of trying to understand how you can sack your boss. Is that the expression that you use?
That's
Yes.
the one.
Yes, how you can sack your boss. That may be the UK version. I don't know what we have over here in the States. Maybe Danny or Simone can help me, but I don't know. I like that idea of being able to be independent and what tools may be available to us. And one thing that I especially appreciate, and today I'm going to get out the way and let the gifted and talented mindset growth coach, Danny Williams, and my tech guru extraordinaire, Simone Henry, they have a specific interest and love, I believe, in Mr. Sam I Can Win's subject matter. And so I'm going to let them take the lead today. But in fact, you know what? I'm going to save what I had for later.
Okay. Awesome.
Simone, tell me something. If you wanted to sack your boss and you had heard that real estate was the way to do that, what would be the first thing that you would want to know?
How do I sack my boss using real estate? Oh, as we say in the United States, how do I fire my boss?
I love this. You've come straight for the juggler.
That's it.
So should I just flow? Should
Go with the flow, bro.
Just flow, yeah. Okay. So guys, first and foremost, thank you for this invitation to share, add value, answer questions. And I'm looking forward to this very much so. And since Simone's gone straight for the jugular, let's just deal with the matter on the table. So one of the things I teach people is how to sack their spouse's boss and how to sack their own boss. And Simone's asked a great question. The question is, well, Samuel, I Can Win. How do I sack my boss? How do I fire my boss? How do I just get the job done? And the answer is, you first have to understand one simple lesson. And it's a quick lesson I usually teach people, but although it's so simple, most people don't realize it. And that simplicity is found in the fact that there are only 3 types of money that you can make in property. In real estate, property as we call it in the UK, there's only 3 types of money you can make. Now, I'm gonna grab something to show you some evidence. I didn't say there's only 3 ways to make money.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So
I like the visual.
So this training program that I created, just so you guys see what I'm talking about, is called 30 Ways in 30 Days. All right. So I created this program to teach people 30 separate ways to make money using real estate or property. So I'm only sharing that as a distinction. I didn't say there's 3 ways to make money, but I did say there's only 3 types of money you can make. Okay. The natural question would then be, okay, so Samuel, what are those 3 ways? So I can understand a bit more. So the first way is equity. Okay, now just to give you a quick example, in 2017, one of the properties my beautiful wife and I bought was valued at £240,000 because we're in the UK, but you can translate that as $240,000 just for the sake of easy maths. So we had a guy come around, he did the valuation, he said 240. We were able to buy that property a few months after that valuation for £136,000. Okay, again, just think of it as $136,000. So in your mind, if you're a quick mathematician, you're saying, Samuel, you telling me you got that property for 100,000 less than the price it was listed for? And the answer is yes. Now, the great thing about that is, okay, Simone's excited already. I like this. So the great thing about that is if you do that 10 times in a year, you're a millionaire. Congratulations, Simone. Okay. But the challenge is you're an equity millionaire. And because you're an equity millionaire, unfortunately, you can't take that 100,000 and in the UK, go to an Aston Martin showroom and buy a new car. Or in the US, go to the Dodge showroom and buy a 100K car. You can't use that 100,000 to do anything because the money is stuck in bricks. Equity, in my simple definition, is money stuck in bricks. Everyone understand that, right? So yes. The second of the 3 ways, or the 3 types, excuse me, of money you can make in property is known as profit. Now, I love using dollars because in the UK, we do not have £100 notes, okay? I'm gonna use some dollars. So,
okay,
let's say I buy a property for 100,000, okay? I buy one single property for 100,000. And let's say I convert the garage of that property into a bedroom. So I'm trying to add value. And let's say that that is a 20,000 investment. So I've used 100,000 to buy the property and 20,000 to refurbish or convert the garage on that property. So I'm all in at 120. Everyone with me, yeah?
Yep.
Yes.
Now let's say I sell that property for 150. Okay? Simple question, no trick questions whenever I teach. What is my pre-tax profit? How much profit have I made before I have to pay tax?
Now you're making 30,000.
Awesome. Okay, absolutely awesome. And like I said, no trick questions. Simone's got it on the button. So I bought for 100, I converted for 20, I'm 120 in, and I sell for 150. My pre-tax profit is 30,000. Now, well done, you just made 30,000. But here's the problem: you will never, ever make another pound or dollar from that house again. So now, if you are trying to replace your income, you have to do all that work again.
Keep
Like my
doing it
last
over and over again.
There you go. There you go. You're back on the rat race. Okay. Now, the interesting thing is, in my last like full-time job before I left employment, before I sacked my boss, fired my boss, I was generating 47,000 a year. So if I was making 30,000 a deal, I'd have to at least do 1.5, let's call it 2 of those a year, right?
Right.
And I'd have to do 2 of those a year every year for the rest of my life, right?
Right.
Okay, so we would probably talk about the third type of money you can make in property in that case. Because the third type of money you can make in property is known as cash flow. Now, cash flow is the residual recurring revenue that we have at our disposal. It's the money that keeps on coming every single God blessed month. Now, here's a question I've got for you guys. If you had to choose the best way to replace a monthly income, hashtag sack your boss, hashtag sack your spouse's boss, which of these 3 types, equity, profits, or cash flow, do you think is the best?
I'm going to go ahead and go with the cash flow.
Oh, I'm
Cash
with you,
cow.
Me too. Cash flow wins.
I'm with all of you.
Give me
And
a
the reason I'm
beanstalk.
with all of you is because that's the reality. So the simple lesson is first understanding the 3 different types of money you can make in property, and then understanding why most people can't replace their income from property. The reason most people can't replace their income is because of one simple thing: they lack focus. You see, the sun, it shines its rays on every single one of us, and some of us take away heat, some of us take away light, some of us take away a tan, some people even get burnt, right? Then there's some people who have a tool, something simple, just like a magnifying glass. And using the tool, we take the rays from the sun and we end up with a laser. And guess what a laser can do? We can tear through grass, we can tear through stone, we can tear through skin, we can tear through bone. So the question is, how come Samuel, I can win? You can tear through grass, tear through stone, tear through skin, tear through bone, but other people are just getting suntan lights and heat.
Got that tool.
And the answer is, I'm using a tool to create focus. So the problem is, out there's lots of gurus who tell you, go and buy properties 65% of the value and sell that property one day in the future for $200,000 extra and make $1,000 every single month, make £1,000 every single month from the cash flow. And what's the problem? Well, now you know the problem. They lack focus. If you want to replace your income, or if you want to sack your boss, sack your spouse's boss, you need to first choose the right type of money to focus on, and then all you got to do is focus on it. And as you build up your portfolio of deals that specifically align with that type of revenue, you will get your income replaced way faster than anyone else you know who's ever gone into real estate.
This is really amazing, Sam. I wish that you were around in the early 2000s when all we had was Carlton sheets, you know, and it was late night infomercials.
I know, right?
I don't remember the detail, the breakdown, or the visual aids that we have to be able to see. So with this knowledge that you're sharing with us, you're implying that most people are not focused who go into real estate. How is it that you teach people how to focus? What is it that you do? What is your system for helping people learn focus?
That's absolutely phenomenal. Okay. And I'm going to be really clear about this, Danny, because I think this is going to help a whole lot of people who are tuned into this. You see, most human beings are intelligent enough to make the right decision. The challenge is most human beings have been dating someone that nobody should ever date. You see, like, you know, when we're young and our parents tell us never date this kind of person.
Yeah.
The one kind of person we should never date is a lady named Miss Information.
Come on now. Come
So-
on now.
Say that again. Say that again, Brother Sam.
The
Say that
one-
again.
The
Hmm.
one type of lady we should never date is a lady named Miss Information.
Ooh, that's
Now,
good.
I've got the benefit of having been a secondary and A-level math teacher. So for you guys, that means I taught maths in high school and college. And the
Okay.
interesting thing is when I used to teach maths, I very quickly understood what was going on, which was wrong. And that's why I had to leave that industry, because I was misinforming the individuals. I was not setting them up for their best life by equipping them with the best insights. I was making a mistake. And after I realized that, hold on a minute, I'm actually programming them to become less than what they could be, I had to get out of that because that's not in me. I don't want to be that guy. So most people have been dating misinformation for so long, which is the reason why, even though they're intelligent enough to make the right decision, they have the wrong information that they're making decisions off of. So what I just did a moment ago with Simone's beautiful question is I literally just gave you the right information. I shared with you the problem is not real estate. And there's lots of people in real estate who aren't winning, and they've got 4 or 5 properties and they're saying, how comes I still can't get ahead? I've got some assets. Well, the reason you can't get ahead is because you've never bought any of those assets with a singular focus on the specific thing you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to achieve cash flow, focus on cash flow and buy a property on cash flow. Let me do something. I think this is going to help. All right. So let me ask this question. If I bought a property that cost me 100,000 to buy, okay, so whatever, like you guys are in the US, you guys have the benefit of the FHA loan, okay? Let's say I use an FHA loan, 3% down, 3.5% down, so I put $3,500 down and I've got $100,000 property, right? So now I've got $100,000 worth of property. Let's say, for example, I decide after 2 months, I don't want to live in it anymore. I go live with my parents and I'm renting this out. And this is generating me $1,000 a month, okay? Let's just rough numbers, okay? $1,000 a month income from one asset. Now watch this. Let's say a credit crisis shows up. And that credit crisis deflates that property from 100,000 to 50,000. Now, here's the interesting thing. What would most people do? I can tell you what most people do. 2008, 2009 showed us what most people do. Most people would get up, run, sell their house.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Let's go back to the lesson I shared with Simone. If you understand that the primary purpose of that property was to generate cash flow, and the cash flow has not in any way, shape, or form been affected, do you have a problem?
Why are you selling? You don't have a problem.
Simone,
Right?
Simone,
You still
Simone's
own the
teaching the
property.
lesson now. Let's go.
Come on now. Come on now. You still own
Yeah.
the property. The cash flow still rolling in. What's the problem?
Wow.
That is the problem. The problem is people are so misinformed, they don't realize why they bought the asset in the first place. And for most people, they didn't buy the asset for the right reason. So that's why when some news comes out, they allow that news to confuse. And then before long,
Ooh,
they
wait.
And I think too, a lot of people, they get emotional about they're watching the news and they're riding the emotional wave of the news. You know, the stocks are up today and the housing market fell off tomorrow. And, and they're like, their emotions are going along with the news rather than staying focused on, they're allowing the news and what's going out in the world, happening out in the world, trigger their ADHD, right?
I'm still stuck. I'm still stuck on we allow the news to confuse. I'm just like,
Yes, right?
Danny, you missed. I don't know if you missed the last part. They allow the news to confuse, and after a while, they lose.
Come on now. Pass the plate. He done preached the sermon.
Oh Lord, is it that good? We're just trying to help somebody. I know there's somebody who needs the help, so this is why we're doing this.
Man,
oh yeah.
I'm over and over now. I've been hearing in the last several weeks people talking about an impending crisis. financial crisis. What should we keep in mind of what you're sharing to help us figure out what we're going to be needing to do to navigate this upcoming financial crisis that many people believe is on the way?
That's a powerful verse. So a powerful question. So I'm gonna give us a verse. Let me get that right. So I'm gonna
Okay.
give us a verse. I used to talk, now I just think about it. So you see, one of my favorite parables in the Bible is found in Matthew 13, verse 44. Okay. And someone might have the question niggling in their mind, Samuel, why is that your favorite parable? I'm going to be very transparent. It's because it's a whole parable in one verse. And I've been teaching for years and I've never known how to concisely put a whole parable in one verse. So the fact that God was able to do that is why it's my favorite parable. And the parable, I'm paraphrasing, says simply, the kingdom of heaven is like a man who finds treasure, and when he discovers it in a field, he hides it in that field. He goes and sells everything he's got and then comes and acquires the land. Now, it's an interesting parable. It's a powerful parable, and it has lots of application, but more importantly, even more implications. So for me, if somebody says to me, Samuel, look, I'm thinking that there's going to be a crash, and all of this news is telling me there's going to be a crash. And if there's a crash, what do I do? Well, here's what you do. You first understand and recognize what's of value to you.
Okay.
You see, it goes back to what I said a moment ago about the news confusing people. Like, you have to understand what's of value to you. That way, all news comes through the filter of your value system. It doesn't come through the filter of, oh, today this is the headline, tomorrow that's the headline. Like, those headlines mean nothing to me. Like, the headlines that mean something to me are the headlines that corroborate or are aligned or are at odds with my specific value. You know, and the moment I start to tune into that, like, give an example, okay? Let's use the example we've used. I think that's even going to be even better. So for Simone, the example we then built up earlier on is, okay, we've got this property, it's generating $1,000 a month. And if it goes from 100 to 50,000, it makes no difference to me. So when they say, oh, a crash is coming, a crash is coming, a crash is coming. Well, because I was focused on what was treasure to me, hashtag cash flow in that example, I've built a portfolio, or I've got an asset in that example we're talking about, which generates cash flow. So the questions I'm asking myself when I hear this news is, what does that have to do with my cash flow? And if the answer is nothing, because yes, the house may depreciate in value immensely, but my cash flow is not going to be altered at all, then that news doesn't even relate to me.
Wow.
So whilst people are saying there's a crash, there's a crash, there's a crash, yeah, there's a crash for you, but there can't be a crash for me because my values, my priorities have nothing to do with what they're talking about.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting that your modality is there. You know, now I got to be honest, Sam, because even as you were talking about the crash of 2008, 2009, I started to get a little triggered because I was impacted by, you know,
So was I.
that crash. And having some experience in real estate, it can definitely help you, or it can cause you to have like a post-traumatic stress, you know, when you've been burned.
I love that.
You know,
yes.
And based on what you're sharing, the information now is that if you're focused, you know, then the news isn't going to sway you one way or the other. And one of the things that I did discover that I want to affirm what you're saying is that, you know, cash flow, if that's your focus, you're good, because rents don't go down.
No, they don't.
Doesn't go down.
They go up.
Very rarely.
Extremely rarely.
Up.
And so
people are still raising rents during a market crash.
Yes. That's right.
And so I can see how. But for those of us who've had a little bit of PTSD,
yes,
you know, who got burned,
yes, sir,
who you know, how can we re-emerge with this new focus to be successful in this realm?
That's a powerful question, Danny. And you know, to start with, like, the real answer is probably not the answer most people want to hear. So I'm going to give you the real answer because I need to be a man of integrity, but then I'm going to give you the answer in a way that you can actually hear it. So the real answer is just belief. You need belief. And 9 times out of 10, we don't believe the things that we need to believe. So what do you do to build your belief? You get around people who believe the things you're supposed to believe, and they help you build your belief. Because belief is like a brick wall. You have to build it. Okay? Like, I'll give you an example. When you are 0 years old, you don't know how to tie your shoes. When you are 0 years old, you don't know how to speak. When you are 0 years old, you don't even know how to walk. But over time, maybe if you're like in my house, I've got more than 3 children. When my youngest looks at the oldest, they see and believe. Now, here's the interesting thing. My oldest child, my daughter, she would have looked at me and my wife and said, they're walking, so I can walk. And over time, they would have built the belief. She would have built her belief to start walking. She would have built her belief to start talking. She would have built her belief to start tying her shoelaces. Everybody understands what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Let's go a bit deeper, okay? That's the first part. The reality is you just need to build your belief. And the fastest way to build your belief is get around people who are already doing it. Okay, so answer most people don't want to hear, because most people don't want to just deal with the reality. But that's the reality. But let me give it to you in a way which is going to be really helpful, okay? My wife and I recently had a baby in September of last year, right? Now, here's the interesting thing. When you change a baby's nappy, a diaper, okay, like you might get dirty, right? You might get dirty. It's a possibility. But you don't get dirty and then say, I'm never changing this baby's diaper again. Because let me tell you what happens. I'm going to tell you what happens. This is the interesting thing. I hear you laughing already, David. Let me tell you what happens, guys. When you decide you'll never change a baby's diaper again, you set yourself up to get messier than you've ever been.
Wow.
You like, I've never done this. Okay, I'm just being transparent. I've never done this. But you try imagining leaving a baby for 4 days without changing the nappy. So the point I'm making is
building up the mess.
It goes. So the point I'm making is most people who have had a poor experience, a bad experience, they've had a poor experience, a bad experience because they didn't know what they were doing. They thought they knew what they were doing because they were doing more than the people around them. But that doesn't make you know what you're doing. Like, I'll give you an example. There's this guy, Martin, okay? He meets this lady, Martha. Martin and Martha, they fall in love in college, okay? When they fall in love in college, Martin owns a 2-bedroom apartment. Martha owns a 1-bedroom apartment. So after they fall in love in college, they go and get married. After they finish college, they get married. They move into one of the properties and they say, we are investors because we've got a spare house. Now, the reality is they're not investors because they've got a spare house. What we call them is they are accidental landlords. Now, the problem is, because they're doing better than most people around them with real estate, i.e. got one spare, they perceive that they're investors, but they haven't understood they're not investors, they're accidental landlords. Now, here's the thing. Perception can really have a dangerous impact on a human being. Because the moment you think you're an investor, you think you know what you're doing. But if you knew you were an accidental landlord, you know you don't know what you're doing. Now, I'll give you a few examples to help you with this. An accidental landlord never bought the spare house with the intention to generate maximum cash flow. An accidental landlord never bought the spare house with the intention to maximize equity or to maximize profit. Why? Because they bought the house to live in it.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying a house you bought to live in it can't become a good investment, but what I'm saying is that wasn't the purpose. It wasn't the objective when you purchased it. So you should be able to understand just from the law of averages that most likely that might not be the best investment. So the point I'm making is if somebody's dealing with those kind of issues, they just got to think about it like the baby. They just got to realize, look, I'm a mess. And maybe I made a mess because I didn't know what I was doing. And the great thing about children is the more you have, the better you get at changing diapers. And that's the same as property and real estate. The more you have, the better you get at doing it. And if you're in a situation where you've had a bad experience, get around someone who has learned to navigate the field and ask them to teach you. And yes, there may be a cost. Why? Because if it's of value, it's going to have a price. Matthew 13:44, the guy sold everything he had. But why did he sell everything he had? Not because he wanted to sell everything he had. He sold everything he had because he knew that he had found treasure.
Something of greater value.
And the treasure is more important than what most people have.
Wow. Sam, I didn't expect to be eating humble pie this morning, but I used to think I was smart and knew a little something.
It's nice to be in a room with somebody smarter than us, right?
I'm humbled like Job. I put my
stand
hand over my
firm.
mouth
Here's a great thing, Danny. Here's a great thing. And for all the Bible students who are tuned into this, you'll know one thing that I know. The beautiful thing about humility is that it comes before honor.
Amen.
So here's the great thing. Sometimes we don't even have to dwell on the fact that we've been humbled by a scenario, a situation, or a scene. We just have to understand the fact that the eventuality of that humility is being honored.
Amen. I received that. I'm snatching it down.
Me too. So can I ask a question?
Yes, let's go.
Okay, so we talked earlier about all the news where, they're talking about, oh, there's a crash coming, there's a crash coming. I haven't actually been paying attention to the news, so this is actually news to me. But I have heard that I saw snippets here and there, have been layoffs. But for the people who still have their jobs, you can't lay off everybody, right? So for the people who still have their jobs and are, they're fortunate, but to them to hedge against maybe a future crash, a future layoff for them, what should they be doing right now to get some cash flow to help them out in that potential future?
That's a great question, Simone. That's a great question. And I think the reason that's such a great question is not enough people ask that question at the right time. A lot of people wait, Daddy mentioned Job a moment ago. A lot of people wait for calamity before they get their mind right. So that question is a powerful question. So let me jump into it. There's a few things every human being needs. We need to all develop our mindset. We need to be able to think about things the right way. So for example, my mindset understands that humility comes before honor. So if I'm ever in a situation where I'm humbled, I know honor's on its way. Okay. But some people who haven't developed their mindset, they won't see that. Even though they get humility, which is going to help them, they won't see that, oh, this is a door to my honor. So I'm sharing that because it's in the context of what we've been talking about. So we can all see, oh, I see what you're talking about, Samuel. Mindset is key. Okay. But once you have the right mindset, you then have to develop a skill set. And this is where people make a big mistake. They don't develop their skill set. What they do is they go to school, they get a job so that they can put money in their 401k. For those of you who are in the UK, that literally means your retirement plan. And then besides that, they just wait at work until they can get a watch. And the reality is you don't want to get a watch. You want to start to watch. Okay, so I'm going to say that again. I want you to really repeat that. You don't want to get a watch. You want to start to watch. You want to start to watch the people who waited for the watch and see what happened to them. And you're going to start to realize that the people that waited for the watch are no longer happy that they waited for the watch. Wow. So why do you now want to go and do something that people who have done it are going to tell you if they could go back, they wouldn't do it?
Come on, Sam.
So the key for me, for those people who still have a job, I don't even like that, feels so weird to say that. But for the people that you're talking about, Simone, because I'm going to go into something else I think is going to be helpful as well. But for those people, the key is for them to start to develop the right mindset, then enhance their skill set so they can end up with a tool set. Because what most people don't realize is that when you have the right mindset, skill set, tool set, you can now start to build your assets.
That's right.
But you can't build a set of assets if you don't have the right skill set or the tool set or the mindset. And this is the thing, there's usually one of those three that's so I usually help people to understand how they can develop one of those three that are missing in order for them to see, oh, this is why they're not building a portfolio of assets, because they were missing or lacking in their skill set, or they were missing or lacking in their tool set, or they were missing or lacking in their mindset. So that's what I'd advise them. And let me touch this because you speak about these people. You said some people have been laid off, but for those who still have their jobs. Like, I want to say this. You said you used the word fortunate. Well, here's the thing. Everybody in my economy is fortunate. Those people that lost their jobs, they're fortunate. You woke up this morning, you're fortunate. Because you need to ask yourself, has there ever been someone who's been laid off, has no job, who today is a multi-millionaire, or today is financially free, or today can sell their house? Like, and the answer is yes, they can. So the situation doesn't dictate your future. What dictates your future is what you're going to do about the situation. So I'm just throwing that in because I don't want anyone to be feeling
I hear
like
you. For some
no
people, having that layoff is the best thing that could possibly happen to them. Because sometimes you're stuck in the job, or you're thinking that the job is your saving grace, when really it's your comfort zone. And that's really what it is. And you're not growing, but being kicked out basically onto the street and really now your only dependence is on God.
Yeah.
Well, now it's like, okay, sink or swim, right?
Mhm.
God help me.
Yeah.
And without being kicked out onto the street, well, now my faith has to grow. My skills have to grow. My mindset has to grow because I have no other choice
So
at this point, right? There's no other, there's not this job to depend on, this comfort zone to keep me all cozy and comfortable and not growing.
You just said something that just kind of stuck with me, job to depend on. Sam, in your experience, do you think that people in Western cultures, such as ours, learn to depend and almost idolize that thing called a job? And
100%.
how does the realm of real estate counteract that ideology?
That's a powerful question, Danny. And I think you're so right. I think people definitely do. And interestingly enough, this is just all just reminding me of the story of Daniel in the book of Daniel. Literally 12 chapters. Like, go read that. Anyone who tuned into this, like, just when you get time, go read the book of Daniel. Powerful book to read. So it's reminding me of the book of Daniel, and just literally the fact that these people were kidnapped. These young boys were kidnapped, brought into another environment called. And interestingly, in Babylon, they were used for their wisdom. They were used for what they had to offer. It was their value that was being capitalized on. And people don't see these things, but that's what was going on in the book of Daniel. The capitalization of other people's mindset, the capitalization of other people's skill sets, the capitalization of other people's tool sets. All right. Now, the reason why I find this really interesting is because in the UK, my wife and I, we use this term a lot of the time. We say people have golden handcuffs. That's the term we use when we're talking about
We
the
use
job.
that here too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there
Some
it
people
is.
are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but still feel like slaves.
That's
Yes.
right. Because
Yeah,
they're
I've heard that.
wearing golden handcuffs. Here's the thing that's interesting. If you're at a certain angle, golden handcuffs can look like golden bracelets.
Yeah.
So that's where the problem is. The fact that they're at an angle perception where their golden handcuffs look like golden bracelets. So they haven't realized they're shackles that need to be broken. So the key in all of these things, which is again so powerful that Danny kind of like touched on this, is for people to get the right perspective on what's actually holding them down. You see, I used to teach math. So here's the interesting thing. If you look at it mathematically, it is close to impossible. Like my first degree, I know you guys talk about majors. I did a joint major in my first degree. It was in computing and statistics. And then I studied a master's in statistics. So my real interest in maths was always about statistics, right? Probabilities. What's the probability this is going to happen? Well, here's the interesting thing. It's highly unlikely mathematically that you can ever be financially free from working a job.
Yeah.
Just do the maths. Even if you're on 100,000 a year, listen to this: 100,000 a year. You clock in at 8 a.m. You clock out at 8 p.m. So even if you get that 8,000, 10,000 after tax, whatever it is, every single month, you don't even have enough time to go and spend the money you make. So there's someone who's making 20,000 a year who can go down to their local department store and buy the shoes they like. And there's someone who's making 100,000 a year who doesn't even have the time to go and spend the fact that they make 5 times more than the other person. So those golden handcuffs or bracelets or whatever you call them, to me, they look just like Danny said, like golden calves.
Wow. The golden
Dropping some bars.
I hope everyone's feeling it. They're getting lots and lots of value today, because I don't know, over here, this is feeling like valuetainment. I mean, it's just some good stuff over here. There are a couple things that I would love for you to speak on based upon a previous conversation I had with you. Every day, the genesis of Change the podcast was based upon going on social media and having a conversation with the followers as to the things that would help them have a better life. Having prayed online with lots of people, I enjoyed praying, but there would be all these questions for financial assistance. And I would wonder, okay, what's the disconnect? We pray and God does bless, but there seems to be in the Christian world some kind of disconnect that either makes being wealthy or financially successful evil, or somehow it's bad to rely on it's almost like, oh, we're not having faith. We need to pray and just trust that God's going to do it, versus skill set, mindset, tool set, assets. You shared something with me, I think, from your experience growing up with your mother that would be very beneficial, I think, for us and our understanding.
Awesome. Thank you for even bringing that up. So the thing is, David, which is interesting, is I feel like many people in church culture in our modern society have a stagnation success or a success stagnation mentality. And that success stagnation mentality is, I'm going to be successful when I get to heaven.
Jesus.
But if we read the scriptures, the Bible literally says to us that, like, I'll give you one verse paraphrased real quick from the mouth of the Lord, the Master himself. He said, greater works than I have done, you shall do. So here's the thing. This is a guy who sees thousands of people hungry and feeds them. How do you do that in our modern day? You see thousands of people and you feed them. And if I'm going to do greater works, I need to see more thousands of people and still be able to feed them. So I'm just breaking some little basics down for us to understand the foundation of what we're talking about and why we shouldn't be having a success stagnation mentality. Like, we're supposed to be blessed today. Now, blessing isn't about money. Blessing is an empowerment. When you look at the Hebrew, it's an empowerment to prosper. Okay? An empowerment to prosper, to do well, to be strong. Okay? So we're supposed to have that in every area of our life, just like Daniel was able to do in the Babylonian system. Okay? Now, I came across a lot of these ideas fairly early. Okay? And not because I was looking for them. So David's kind of like spoke a bit about this, so I'll share. So my mum used to work for 15 years in a specific bank in London. And one day they decided that her name was on the list and she was made redundant. She was sent home with more job. At the time, my mum was a parent of 4 boys living without my dad. They separated 5 years earlier. I was 11 at the time. They separated when I was 6. And my mum's looking at her life saying, how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going to pay my bills? I don't have an income anymore. So as an 11-year-old, I looked at my mum and watched her struggle. I watched her try to figure out how she could sell her house with speed and have no solutions. Because real estate agents, what we call estate agents in the UK, the traditional vehicle to sell property is not based on the speed and convenience of the seller. It's actually based on the speed and convenience of the realtor or the estate agent, because it's a commission-based industry. So they get paid. So if they've got a quota of like 4 properties they need to sell this month and you're number 5, they might leave your house to the 1st of next month just to make sure they can have a head start on the quota next month. Now, how do you know this, Samuel? Well, I know this because I was helpless to be able to help my mum at 11. But fast forward to the age of 19, the first full-time job I got was as an estate agent. And I started to see the inside workings of why it was so hard for my mum to sell her house fast. And it was around that time that I came across some principles which changed my life. And it was a coach who literally shared something very powerful, which I've now even developed further, but I'll share all of it with you. The coach said that many people in the church are fallen in love with the person of Jesus. And he said the person of Jesus gives us so many benefits. Some of those benefits are salvation, eternal life in heaven, and so on. He said, but there's a part missing, which is why so many people struggle in this life. And that's not the person of Jesus, that's the principles of Jesus. See, the person of Jesus will get you into those gates that so many people want to get into. But the principles of Jesus will get you living like you're in those gates in this life right now. Some of those principles are give and it shall be given unto you. One of the big mistakes many people make is they expect to get it given unto them from the same person that they gave to. And they don't realize that God doesn't play the game like that. So you can give to one and get from another. And the reason why this is so powerful is because the moment you have that little shift of a mindset, you start to understand, okay, I need to stop putting pressure on people to get from. Because when I give, I don't give to get. I give to give. And he circulates the getting program and I get to get. So I started to understand that there's the person of Jesus, and I want to fall deeply in love with that Savior so I can have every single thing he wants to give me. But at the same time, I want to get very, very comfortable with the principles of Jesus. So in this life, I'm not looking around trying to steal or beg or borrow because I don't know how I'm going to live tomorrow. So I had to understand the principles as well as the person. And then since hearing that at the age of 18, 19, I then developed that because I discovered there's another thing about Jesus that we need. And that is the promises of Jesus. You need the person of Jesus. You need the principles of Jesus. But there are times when you just don't know what's going on in your life. And the only thing you can stand on is the promises of Jesus. So in light of the question you've asked, David, I feel like what many of us need to do in our community is we need to start sharing with people the multi-dimensional facet of the Lord we say we serve. We need to stop trying to think that our Lord is one-dimensional. No, you might have been living one-dimensional, but he's not one-dimensional. He has multiple dimensions, which is why many people can't understand how he goes into the temple and starts flipping over tables. Why? Because it doesn't fit the dimension that they've believed. But when you read it and you see who he was, you start to realize, oh, he has multiple dimensions. I've only been seeing him on 1 or 2 dimensions. I need to level up in my dimensions.
Now, Sam, can I jump in really fast? You
Let's
said
go.
something. You talked about how, the blessings, of heaven from God, they aren't about money, but do they include money?
I believe so 100%. Like, to give you an example, like, okay, let me say this because this might be a bit counterintuitive and it might be a bit challenging for people if I just say I believe so 100% because I think they won't understand what I really mean. So let me explain what I mean so I'm crystal clear on this. So in Deuteronomy, the Bible talks about God giving you the empowerment to get wealth. In the book of Proverbs, it talks about giving you the gift to have witty inventions. So, like, for me, I don't even want to talk about money. Money's a tool. Money's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is actually access. Because most people don't realize that they actually have access to things they don't know how to have access to. So I'll give you an example. When I meet people for the first time, they say, oh, hey, who are you? What do you do? And I say, hi, I'm Samuel. I can win. I help part-time property people to create consistent and then colossal cash flow using resources and revenue that's hidden in plain sight. In fact, whilst other teachers are out there trying to help people become financially free within 6 to 12 years, me and my team help people create financial freedom within 3 to 12 months. Now, when people hear that, they're like, Samuel, I hear you. Like, that's powerful. I want to do something with you. But they miss probably the most important part of what I do. I help people with resources and revenues that are hidden in plain sight. These things were there before I showed up. The value is not me. Wow. The value is the ability to see. That's what most people have a challenge with. Most people, like I've shared several things throughout our conversation today, and a reoccurring element in them is perception. Because people see things a particular way through means of misinformation, that's why they make the mistakes they make. It's not because they're not intelligent. Like I said, I strongly believe most human beings are highly intelligent and given the right information would make the right decision. So what is the problem? Well, the problem is most people don't have the right information. I believe I'm extremely fortunate because I get all my information from one source, and that's the Bible. And the Bible has all the right information. The Bible is what taught me about misinformation. The Bible says to me in Proverbs chapter 8, it says, Samuel, check this out. There's a lady going around screaming, come this way, but she's the strange woman. And it says that that woman's path leads to death. You see, when you just read it, you then open yourself up to be able to receive it. But most people don't read it. Most people go by what they were told. Oh, my pastor said. Oh, the bishop said. But have you read it for yourself? The Bible says in the book of Acts that the Bereans were more noble than all others because they would search out the things that were told to them even by the Apostle Paul, who wrote a large majority of the New Testament. So who's my pastor? Who's your pastor that I can't double check?
That's good. Now, is there any scriptural like backing to you're referencing money as a tool? It's not about money's just a tool. Like, talk to me. Give us some meat. We need some meat.
I love this. We need some meat. So that's a good question. And in all transparency, I haven't done a deep dive in order to do that. One thing I will share, just kind of like off the mind as you're asking the question, is literally in the book of Genesis, we see something very interesting. Okay, we see that the word gold first shows up in the book of Genesis. Okay, and the interesting thing is it shows up as the eighth thing. And for those of you who are into biblical numerology, the number 8 symbolizes abundance, which is why you turn an 8 on its side and it shows infinity as a sign. Okay, the 8th thing that God said was good. Now, gold is the universal symbol of wealth because it doesn't corrode, it doesn't rust. So although I can't say to you in this verse it says that money's the tool, well, you just have to study the scriptures and see what money's used for generally in the scripture. What's money used for? Money's used to empower people to prosper on their journey. So, for example, Jesus shows up, and what happens? 3 guys show up too, and they bring gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold, the universal symbol for wealth, shows up when Jesus shows up. Why? Because he's probably got a mission to achieve, and he'll probably need some resources to achieve it.
Right.
So the tools are given. You show up ready to do the job, I'll show up with the resources to do the job.
So we got mindset,
Skill set.
the tool. But no, you said mind. Help me out.
That's right.
Mind,
So
skill set, tool set. There we go. And then
equals the assets.
That's it.
So it's hard for those 12 disciples, hashtag the assets, to say no to the beautiful invitation, which is only 2 words. And I've never seen anyone give an invitation better than Jesus's invitation. Follow me. Of course he had the asset. Of course they said, I'm gonna follow him. I'm going his way. Of course, why? Because they saw he had the mindset. They saw he had the skill set. They saw he had the tool set. He had the resources necessary to make things happen. And he made things happen. And even to a degree that there was a time he said to them, don't take any extra things with you. I know we've got this, but I need you to go out there without these things and win. So you understand
they were still taking care of us.
So you understand that these things are just tools. They're not who you are. They're not all of the whole equation. They're a piece of the equation. So even without them, go make it happen.
So then with that as the backdrop, these misinformed people who say money is the root of all evil fail to understand that it is simply a tool to help you manage and to accomplish the purpose that God has given each one of you.
100%. And it's interesting, like anyone who says money is the root of all evil doesn't read the Bible, because it doesn't say that in the Bible. It says the love of money. Yeah. And we're not supposed to love money. We're supposed to love God. Like
people.
That just makes sense, right? Why would you love something that is subservient to you? That doesn't make sense. You should love someone who is providing for you at a level that you can't even provide for yourself, because the money is a byproduct of you being in existence. You see, there's an illustration I use a lot of the time, because a lot of people in this world, they say erroneously like they can't afford it. Okay, a lot of people say like they can't afford it. Example, my wife and I, we have a 12-month coaching program. The investment to be on that coaching program is £35,000. Okay, so that's like $40,000, right? So imagine you go and tell a normal person that an annual salary is how much you got to pay to spend 12 months being coached by us. Okay, now here's what they're gonna say. They're gonna say, if they're not someone who's inclined to investing in themselves at a high level, they're gonna say they can't afford it. And here's the interesting thing, that doesn't even make sense. Now someone's gonna be saying, Samuel, what do you mean it doesn't make sense? If someone can't afford it, they can't afford it. Well, that's not actually true, because let's take a car, right? Let's say a person thinks up a car, creates a car, and brings this car to fruition and sells the car for $50,000, right? So there's a car that's $50,000, okay? There's a car out there for $50,000. Everyone's gonna say, yeah, of course there's 150, there's cars for 500,000. So there's a car for $50,000, right? Now, if someone tells me they can't afford that car, I'm going to tell them, well, who created the car? And they're going to tell me, oh, well, that car came from this manufacturer. Okay, and who created that manufacturer? A person, right? Oh, so you're telling me someone just like you created the thing that they've got a price tag on, and they've asked you if you want it, you should pay that price tag, and you're going to tell me you can't afford it. No, what you mean is you are not willing to apply yourself at a level to create what you need to create to be able to access the thing that you want. Because if a person created that car, and a person was created by the same God that created you, then you also have the capacity and the potential to create whatever you need to create. It might not be a car, it might be something else. Whatever you need to create in order, whether it be a portfolio generating $5,000, £5,000 a month, so you can now access 50,000.
That's good. Capacity and potential. Woo! I got it.
That's powerful.
I love that.
That's powerful. It's what's interesting is that in my Bible reading in the last couple of days, I've been in the book of Job. And you know, after, like, I think it's in the second chapter or whatever, when his friends come by and they, you know, and they're talking with him, and basically all they're doing is blaming him for his own circumstances and telling him how evil he is. But when Job replies, he is replying saying, I need God to show me what happened here. Where did I go wrong? What did I do? Why are evil people prospering and good people not prospering? And basically, and it just hit me one day that he is not answering his friends hardly at all. He is applying his application to God, right? Because God's opinion is the only one that matters. We have nothing to prove on this planet, because everybody is in the same sinful condition that we're in. Everybody was created by the same creator, and we have nothing to prove to anyone. Our application should be made to God. So he is the one who created us. He gave us creativity. He gave us courage. He gave us skill. He gave us talent. He gave us gifts. Our application should be to God, and we should really only care what God thinks about us.
100%. First and foremost, it's about God. Like, you see, I'll give you an example. Like, let's say there's a TV, okay, and I don't want to promote any manufacturers because there's no paid sponsorship, right? So let's say there's a TV, and let's say
y'all want to, that's okay.
Oh yeah, okay. If you guys want to, you know, you can hit David up real quick. So let's say there's a TV, and let's say that TV is called the Creator's TV. Now, the reality is the Creator's TV should only ever want to do one thing, which is produce the value the creator created the TV for. That's the only intention and agenda of a wise television, a wise product of a creator, to be able to fulfill its fullest potential, to be able to live at its highest level, delivering the value that it was created to deliver to the world. So when you start sharing about Job, Simone, you're totally right. And the thing, I see the connection between what you're sharing and also what Danny brought up in the sense of money as a tool, because the thing with Job is he was rich at the start.
Yeah. Yes.
And he was richer
at the end. That's right.
You see, that confuses some people.
But and he was a godly man.
Yeah. The whole way through. Godly man. The whole way through.
Whole way through.
He didn't see any unconfessed sins on his record. So he's looking at God like, okay, what happened here? What's going on?
And this is the thing that you know we see in the book of Job. We see it in places in scripture, which is so powerful. You us talking about the fact he's a godly man. So powerfully in scripture, what we see again and again and again is people like David, people like Job asking questions of how comes these people who aren't faithful to you have levels of resources? Yeah. And the answer is obvious. The answer goes back to sharing earlier. It's literally because they use the principles even though they don't care about the person of Jesus. Wow. Mm-hmm. Principles work every single time for every single one.
Wow.
Principles do not discriminate. You see, let me tell you something. There's people that can discriminate, but no principle can ever discriminate. A principal can't say, oh, you went to this school, or you grew up in that neighborhood, or you look like this, or you're that tall or that small. A principal can't discriminate. Wow. A principal has to work for whoever works it. That's why we see so many times people who we think shouldn't have the resource have the resource. But the question is, did they work the principle? The better question is, did I work the principle?
Oh, my
Now,
toes, please, Brother
Now,
see,
Sam.
here's
I don't have
that's
any
what we
toes
need to be
left.
doing, more self-examination instead of looking at
100%.
other people.
Woo,
Oh, what are they
100%.
doing, and comparing ourselves with others. We should be saying, well, what am I doing wrong?
100%.
Wow.
100%. And one thing people don't realize is one of the fastest way to start working principles is to actually learn from other people. It's
Yes.
to learn from other people. And God put that system in motion. That's why we see Elisha, perfect example of mentorship and coaching in the scriptures. Elisha went to Elijah. And one of the things I was sharing with someone yesterday in a coaching session, I said, look, it's so interesting. I hope you understand this. Coaching is the fastest path to success. So yesterday, this gentleman saying to me, okay, explain to me, what do you mean coaching is the fastest path to success? I say, okay, I'll explain it. Elisha sees Elijah and says, look, I'm going to follow you. And Elijah says something. First he rejects him. He says, no, 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 no. Why? Why does he reject him? Because life is always showing rejection before acceptance. Okay, so we have to get used to those barriers. There are challenges and hurdles we have to jump in order to qualify. Okay, that's just how life is. Don't be that person. Don't be that person who says, oh, I don't have a peace about it, I'm out of here. No, no, no. Be that person who understands maybe this bear needs to be destroyed and this lion needs to be taken out, so that when you see Goliath, you've got a CV to say, I took out the bear, I took out the lion, and hey, Goliath, you're done. You're finished before we even start.
Yes.
So sometimes we have to understand that the challenges are not to be run away from, they're to actually be run towards. But the moment we start to understand that, we start to put all the parallels together. Oh, hold on a minute. Are you telling me that people operate principles and that's how they are ending up to win? And I can actually learn those principles by humbling myself and saying, I'm going to learn from another person who's actually operating the principles. And the answer to all of that is yes, because the fastest path to success is coaching. Now, the thing that's interesting is, if you don't believe me, just go look at the real world. Okay? We see Tiger Woods, one of the greatest golfers of all time. He had a coach. We hear about Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He had a coach. The late Kobe Bryant, great basketball player, had a coach. LeBron James, one of the greatest basketball players, has a coach. Serena Williams, one of the greatest tennis players of all time, has a coach.
And those coaches don't work for free.
Oh my gosh, that's true. But here's the question. How comes every single one of them has one singular commonality? Professionals are different to amateurs generally because of the fact they have a coach.
Wow.
They've submitted themselves to a teacher to allow themselves to prosper and grow at an exponential rate. So let's go back to the scripture. Elisha goes to Elijah, and after Elijah accepts him, he says something powerful. He says, if you're still around when I finish my program with you, when I go up, I'm paraphrasing, when I go up, you will end up with a double portion. Do you know what that is? That's exponential growth, not additive, multiplicative. That's mathematics right there.
Yeah.
He says, you get exponential growth if you stay on my program to the end.
Yeah.
That's powerful, because a lot of the people that the names that you've mentioned, we know their names, but we don't know their coaches' names. The coach will coach their mentee into exponential more growth than they ever had.
But what did Jesus say, Simone? Greater works.
Wow.
Well, you do.
That's how it works. When you understand the principles, you start to understand how it works. Oh, so that's how it works. I might pay that coach $35,000 for a 12-month program. However, what I might produce might be $350,000, one of my students, in the period of time. And if I create 10 times more than I paid, that's exponential growth.
Exponential growth. That's right.
So who got the wrong end of that deal?
I see Dave. I see you trying to land a plane. No, you're not allowed to land a plane.
Oh, wow.
Must keep
like
going.
That. Oh, wow.
Yes, no.
It's like that. Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm laughing because, I looked down, I'm like, okay, well, we had even talked about, looking at some specific questions. So one thing I want to highlight for those who are watching, obviously we are experiencing great value. We're experiencing great information that can provide a wonderful transformation that many of you have expressed that you desire. So, Brother Samuel, how do people get access to your mentorship?
Oh, that's an awesome question. So, you know, one of the things I realized a long time ago is not everybody's ready to do certain levels of investment in themselves. And because of that, we've created a 5 experience for VIPs and also for general participants to join us on what we call the cash flow creation challenge.
Okay, say that one more time because the audio dropped out again.
No
It's
problem.
a
Thank
five
you.
what?
So we created a 5-day experience for VIPs, and we also have a general participation for people to learn about cash flow creation. So we call that the cash flow creation challenge. So the 5-day cash flow creation challenge allows people to go from literally someone who maybe had a portfolio, maybe like Danny, who's maybe been burnt, or maybe you felt burnt even though you didn't get burnt. The whole scenario I spoke about, you've got a portfolio, 4 or 5 properties, but you're still asking why I don't get ahead. So this challenge literally takes people that is what we call part-time property people and shows them the intricacies of how they can become actual colossal and consistent cash flow creators. So they no longer have the fog of the misinformation they've been dating, and they start to see clearly the path for them to be able to really be creating. So the cash flow creation challenge is something we do 5 days, 2 hours a day for our VIPs, 1 hour a day for the general participants. 5 days, you will basically get everything you need in order to succeed. Just make sure you come along with your pen and your paper so you can literally get fed. So yeah, that's what we do, the cash flow creation challenge.
And where do they find that? Where is there a URL or a handle that people?
So David should have a link, hopefully on the video somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you check the description, there'll be a link right there for you guys to just plug in, get all the information, make that decision if this, and literally join us for the experience.
So I'm going to suggest because there's just so much more that we can talk about. I'm going to suggest that we do a part 2. I'm going to suggest that we get together again and have a part 2, because I know that I have questions about specific things, and but I want to be respectful of the fact of your time and everyone's schedule. But I would like to extend an invitation, if you're open, to come back and for us to have further conversation.
Thank you ever so much. Danny, Simone, what's your thoughts?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Part 2, part 3, part 4, part
Yeah,
5. Let's do this.
Elijah's still here. I need more time. I need more time. I need more time, Sam. I need more.
Considering you guys are unanimously in agreement, what I'll do is I'll speak to the team. We'll definitely get that arranged. And here's the thing I'll share. Danny just said, look, I need more time. I'm going to say this. This is why our challenge is a 5-day challenge. So literally in the VIP element of the challenge, one of the things we do is we have a 60-minute all access Q&A every single day for the VIPs. So that allows them to not finish the challenge feeling like Danny, feeling like I've got more questions to get answered, but they literally get their questions answered from day one. And one of the things is people always think, Sammy, why'd you do that? And it's literally because I'm here to serve at the highest level. I tell people before they join our challenge, if you're coming as a VIP, write down questions you've had about real estate and property for your whole life. Bring any questions you've got. Don't be the person who rocks up on day one and starts, oh, what can I ask? Be the person who comes prepared. No, I want to know about this. And when you get in as a VIP and you get those questions answered, at the end of day one, oh, I got more than my money's worth, because I got, if I get this question answered, that will be worth more than the registration. Be that kind of a student, because that kind of a student, they're going to hit day 3 and be like, oh my gosh, I can't imagine what else we're going to get through this.
Running.
That's fantastic. I have and one more question. So from your accent, we can tell you're a British man.
That's right.
Do you have lots of Americans in your coming to your challenge, and are they're getting the same kind of value that's like your British students will get? They can take the information and use it over here, just like over there?
That is a great question, Simone. And the answer to that is 100% yes. Now, we're currently in a challenge week right now. So we've got students on our challenge right now who are based in the US. I think Ohio is the state that is representing on this particular challenge. Challenges we've done in the past with students who are in Canada. We've done challenges in the past with students in France. We've done challenges in the past with students in Nigeria. So the stuff we're working, like, there's an analogy I usually give, and I know we're struck for time, so I want to try and keep it short, but the analogy is very simply that there are different kind of keys out there in the world. And when I first wanted to learn about real estate and property, what I did is I went to all of these teachers and they would give me what I call a hotel room key. Now, the reason I call it a hotel room key is because a hotel room key has been created for a short-term accommodation. Every single hotel room, it doesn't matter whether you pay $10, £10, £10 million, $10 million. Every hotel room was created for short-term accommodation. So what would happen is these teachers would teach me and my wife how to do things in property. We'd go and do it. We'd make money because we're good students. We would listen to the coach. So we'll go and do it. We'll run the play. We'll make some money. And then the government will change the legislation. And the moment the government will change the legislation, the key wouldn't work anymore. Temporal accommodation. It's a temporary key. It's not a real key. It's only going to last for a little while. Now, the second key many people love to get is a car key. Now, the car key is a key to a vehicle. And a vehicle can take you from point A to point B. Like, there's people out there who go into cryptocurrency, or they want to play the lottery, for example. They put £1 in to get £1,000 out. Okay. Now, here's the interesting thing. Yes, the lottery is a vehicle and might take you from A to B, but very few vehicles were created for you to sleep in them. So what happens is, even though it takes you from A to B, it doesn't necessarily keep you there. So you might make the money, but then never retain the money. So that's the problem with a vehicle. But the last key that I love to talk about is the property key, the real key, the house key, these keys. Now, what's the great thing about real keys? Well, it doesn't matter if you're talking about the smallest kind of property, a studio apartment, or the largest kind of property, a stately mansion. Every single property was created for long-term accommodation. Now, why is that interesting? Because the keys I teach are only keys that work for you your whole life, and you'll even be able to teach them to your children if you so choose for them to use as well. So that's the answer to your question.
Fabulous. I would love to join this challenge.
I need the keys, Sam. I need the keys.
Sam is my new teacher.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I think today has been successful. Today has been successful. I want to thank you so much for coming across the seas via Zoom and sharing wisdom with us. As you hear from the responses from Simone and Danny, we are thrilled at the knowledge that we've received, and we're excited about engaging with you more in the future.
We look forward to it, definitely.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
You're most welcome, guys. It's been a pleasure.